everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jess and today's video is going to be a makeup inventory update video. I do updates for this particular numerical value of my makeup collection about every 6 months for you guys, and I give you guys a bit of an update. I am loving the lip colour though. Here, I'll give you guys a close up. I just love it. I think it looks really good. And then this is a close up of the eyes, so just wing liner and then blue in the waterline. Yeah, let's just jump right on into the numbers of my makeup collection. If you are at all curious about particular products or collections in my makeup collection, then let me know in the comments below. But I did do a makeup declutter video this year when me and Luke first moved into our house, so if you have any questions then I would definitely check out that video first. So first category I have in here is brow gel. I had one in July of 2023 and I now have two going into the next year. That is the 17 one and the e.l.f. one. They're both tinted brow gels. They're both my preferred ones. I like both of them. I will just use them up. They're both relatively new, so they probably won't finish until halfway through this year. For brow powder, I had one in July and I now have one also, and I unhauled the e.l.f. brow powder duo and I now still have my Revolution Pro brow powder. Brow pomades slash cushions, and that kind of encompasses any other kind of brow products. I had zero in July. I now have zero. I might just get rid of this category. Primer, I had two in July. I still have two. I have the primer setting spray, the primer spray from Barry M, and I have the e.l.f. mint melt primer, but I am quite close on both of those actually. For foundation, I had 5 foundations in July. I now have 4. However, in the actual yearly overview of my collection, right, this time last year I had 9 foundations, and now a year later I am sat with 4. I feel super proud of myself for that, and I am counting the e.l.f. Halo Glow as foundation because in the summer I literally use this as my foundation. I'm quite happy with 4. 4 doesn't feel too overwhelming, and quite honestly there is a foundation in that collection that I am not the biggest fan of after trying it again yesterday. I believe I tried it again and I just didn't like the foundation, so I'm not really feeling too worried about this category in total. I probably will try a couple of new foundations this upcoming year just because I feel like I found my true preference in foundations, and there is quite a few new drugstore foundations out on the market that I am tempted to try. For concealer, I had 6 in July and I now have 4, so I've used up another 2 concealers. But again, if we look at that in kind of total over a year, so last December I had 8 concealers in my collection, and at the end of this year I have 4, so I have finished up 4 concealers this year or passed on a concealer. I think I have mainly used them up though, so that is really impressive and I'm so happy about that. For colour correctors, I had 0 in July and I still have 0. I don't think I'm going to purchase any colour correctors. I'm kind of on the fence about colour correctors, to be honest. If I did purchase one, it would be a salmony coloured one to go under my eyes, but even then I do find as long as I layer my foundation right up under my eyes and then use my concealer, both of them being medium coverage, it kind of gives me a full coverage kind of under eye that I don't feel uncomfortable about. For powder foundation, I had 1 in July and I still have 1. Powder, I had 3 in July and I now have 2. We all know that I finished the Revlon powder this year. I also finished one other powder this year, and in terms of the year whole view, I had 4 at the beginning of this year or at the end of last year, and I'm now sat with 2 powders and I feel so happy about that. For setting sprays, I had 1 in July. I now had 0. I will be having one at some point again. I will probably be I'm trying to repurchase the e.l.f. one that I had. I really enjoy that setting spray and I do want to have at least 1 setting spray in my collection. Okay, this next category is one of the few that has gone up recently. So for cream and liquid blushes, I had 1 in July. I now have 2. For powder blush, I had 6 in July. I now still have 6. For blush palettes, I had 3. I still have 3. These are the 3 Tarte Cheek Wardrobe palettes. I just count them as blush palettes because they have highlights at the top that I use as blush toppers in most of the palettes, so yeah, I just count them as 3 blush palettes. For cream bronzer slash contour, I had 1 in July. I now have 0. I'm honestly undecided on if I'm going to purchase one or not. If I do, it will be either the dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury ones that e.l.f. has and a couple of other drugstore brands have, or I will try the Charlotte Tilbury one itself, but that's kind of like the only cream kind of contoury bronzing product that I am interested in trying at the moment. Powder bronzer, I had 3 in July and I still have 3 currently, but if we look at it in a year overview. Last year in December I had 6 powder bronzers, and now a year later I have 3. I'm very happy with 3. Bronzers is that thing that I absolutely love, and I stand by bronzer in a makeup routine. If you don't wear bronzer, please wear bronzer. I feel like you'll see a massive difference in your makeup through wearing bronzer. But it's one of those things that I don't purchase often. I really love bronzer, but I just don't feel the need to purchase it often. I love my MAC Mineralized Skin Finish in Medium Deep. You guys know this. I've harped on about this. It's like my favourite bronzer ever for the longest time on my channel. I also really love my Kiko marbled bronzers, which will absolutely be on offer now at this time of year. And then the other one I have is a more cool toned one. It's from MUA, and if I used any up this upcoming year, it'll probably be that one, because it does have pan on it already and it's not a baked product, which means it doesn't have tons of product in it. For bronzers and contour palettes, I had one, I now have none. I did unhaul the Barry M one at the end of my project pan, sadly. But yeah, I'm really proud of the progress that I made. Do I think that I'm going to continue to buy bronzer and contour palettes? Probably not, to be honest. I don't like how in those palettes they're not very tailored to colours that you will use yourself all the time, and I feel like it's kind of those things you've always got at least half the palette that you're not going to use. If there's one that I feel I can use all shades in, then yes, of course. Cream and liquid highlighter, I had 0 in July and I now have 1. For powder highlights, I had 6 in July and I now have 4. This is another category that is almost halved though in the time of a year. So last year in December I had 7, and now in December I currently have 4. So I feel like that is really, really good, and I'm very happy with that number right now. For highlighter palettes, I had 0 in July. I now still have 0, but again, in a year-long overview of this, last year in December I had 4 highlighter palettes and I now have 0. That is absolutely incredible. Do I sometimes think about the Soph X Revolution highlighter palette? 1,000,000% yes, because I had such a love affair with that palette. But it's one of those things, when things expire and you no longer use them, you keep them for the memorabilia of them, and actually you don't use them, so they don't need to stay, you can just remember them. For face palettes, I had 1 in July. I now still currently have 1. That's the sleek one. I am very, very close though. Like I've hit pan on that palette on the bronzer and the highlighter now, so I am quite close to making very, very good progress in that palette. I'm undecided on if I want to pan it going into this year or if I want to just keep using it in my day-to-day life until I finish it. I'm not entirely decided at this moment in time. Okay, here comes the big one. Eyeshadow palette. I had 23 eyeshadow palettes in July and I now am at 20. I really, really, really struggle to declutter eyeshadow palettes. I love eyeshadows. I love applying eyeshadows. But I will say, in terms of how often I wear eyeshadows, especially this last year, has just not been there at all. I stopped doing my Pan Those eyeshadows because I was not wearing eyeshadows, and I will say for majority of the year I don't get to wear eyeshadows, which is so sad because that's probably my favourite step in makeup, is my eyeshadow. But I don't know, like, I don't want to get rid of any eyeshadow palettes. I'm very happy with where I'm at now. I was at a point where I was super overwhelmed at the end of last year. So at the end of last year I had 33 palettes. That is insane for one person, and I was super overwhelmed with 33, but I've donated, I've given away some. I've given some to my nieces most recently as well. I feel really happy with the 20, and I feel like every palette has been used this year. So every palette that is now in my collection has been used this year. For glitters and pigments, I had 0 in July. I now still have 0, but this has had a massive jump because at the end of last year, I had 6 and I now have 0. I just wasn't using glitters and pigments enough, and since owning the Charlotte Tilbury palette, her kind of metallic looser pressed formula gives the effect of glitter without the mess of glitter, and I honestly will always reach for her shadows over the glittery shadow because it's so much more work, you know, like you've got to put the primer down, you've got to then put it on, then you've got to try and blend that's stuck onto a primer into your mattes, and it's a process. I love doing it on other people. Actually, one of my favourite things to use on other people is glitters, but I don't know, I literally just use my Charlotte Tilbury lid shades now. For liquid eyeliner, in July I had 4 and I now currently have 4. I feel like I have a good selection. For shadow sticks, I had 0 in July. I still have 0. I don't have any plans on extending this category, and this is another one that I kind of feel like needs to be eliminated from this. The same goes for glitter and stamp liners. For mascaras, I had 4 in July and I now have 3. I actually had 2, but I got gifted a mascara for Christmas, which I am so thankful for and so excited to try. 2 that are opened, 1 that is unopened. I really want to point out this with mascaras. At the end of last year, I had 9 mascaras, and I counted the minis as like mascaras because they are technically one use and you can still have them for 6 months. But yeah, at the end of last year, I had 9 mascaras. That is absolutely crazy. But also, like, I think I said that I wanted to reduce that amount, and I'm leaving the year with 3. I think that is so impressive. 6 mascaras gone. False eyelashes, I had 2 in July. I now have 1 pair left. For lip liners, I had 2 in July. I now still currently have 2. I keep saying this, but one thing that I really want to do is purge my lip liners completely, finish them off. I've got a Huda Beauty one and I've got the Revolution one in Chauffeur that's been in my project pan this year. They're the 2 that I have. One is like a very, very pale nude. One is like a more warm brown nude. But both of them I want to just finish off and just repurchase lip liners. I need to reevaluate my lip liner collection. I've done a similar thing with my pencil eyeliners this year, where I kind of purged, I got rid of all of my pencil liners, I used them all up, and then I started from scratch. Which brings me on to say that for pencil eyeliners, I had 2 in July and I now have 3. For liquid/cream lip products, I had 1 in July. I now have 2, so I still have the Huda Beauty liquid lipstick in Venus, but I now have this Anastasia one in Vintage as well, which is on my lips today. I'm happy with 2. I'm not the biggest liquid lipstick wearer, but I have been having a little bit more fun with my lip colours recently. Lip glosses, I had 8 in July. I now still currently have 8. I have not used up any more lip glosses in the latter half of this year. I used 2 up at the beginning of this year because at the end of last year I had 10 lipsticks, so I have used 2 in a year span. Kind of bad though to only use 2, but I will say, like I said, I don't reapply makeup, so honestly it's difficult for me to use lip products up because I don't reapply. I literally just apply it in the morning. I do feel like I'm ready to shrink my lip gloss collection just a touch, bring it down to maybe like 5. If I could finish 3 lip glosses next year, I would be very, very proud of myself. Again, just because I don't reapply lip glosses, I don't use them up that quickly, so having 8 is possibly a little bit intense. Although when I say that, like, out of the 8, is there any that I would want to get rid of or not have in my collection? No. Are they all different? Yes. Lip tints, I had 2 in July. I now still have 2. I have the Nivea and the Carmex, but I will say the Carmex is very close to being finished now, so that one will probably be done sometime soon. For lip toppers, I had 2 in July and I now still have 2. It is the Huda Beauty one and a Makeup Revolution unicorn like lipstick topper. Our final category is lipsticks, and in July I had 9 and I now have 10. I can't tell you if that was just a miscount in July or not. At the end of last year I had 12, so I've still decreased over the year by 2. Very, very happy with that. I find lipsticks very hard to use up, but also find it hard to let go of them. So at the beginning of this year / at the end of last year in 2022, we had a total of 153 products in my makeup collection total, which is honestly a lot of products, and I remember feeling super overwhelmed at the end of last year with just the sheer amount of makeup I had in my collection. In July's makeup inventory update, I had a total of 103 products in my collection. So in that 6-month period, I had decreased the size of my overall collection by 50 products. And now at the end of 2023, my total of products is at 93. I feel really, really happy with that. I feel super comfortable with the size of my collection right now. Is there still some work that could be done to maybe shrink a couple of categories? Yes, but also I will say I find myself at times wanting to reach for something but finding that I don't have it, which is such a new feeling to me as someone who kind of grew up in the era of YouTube and like beauty YouTube where everyone collected a massive makeup collection. I'm no longer feeling overwhelmed about my makeup collection, which is honestly making me so happy and so much less stressed. So in the second half of the year, I finished off or donated 10 products from my collection in total. So in the course of a year, I have used up or donated or unhauled 60 products in my collection over the past year. I'm really, really proud of myself for that number. I am very happy with that number and I feel super comfortable with where my collection is now. I do see some of these categories shrinking or myself working on these categories to be shrunk a little bit more over time, but I also could see a couple of these categories possibly increasing over time. Like the setting spray category, for example, is sat at 0 right now, and I will most definitely have 1 by the beginning of next year. So yeah, these categories will change a little bit, I feel, but honestly, I feel really comfortable with where my makeup collection's at now. If I do use up some things, I'd be very happy. Could I see any particular categories decreasing in size? Possibly my lipsticks and lip glosses, and maybe even my eyeshadow palettes decreasing a little bit more in size as I kind of curate my go-to palettes. But yeah, that is everything for today's makeup inventory update. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. We'll see more videos from me, and I'll catch you guys all in my next one. Bye!